CA driver's license, California driver's license, 2009. Let's look at this. So I've taken the last couple days off. It is Monday, November 26th. The last couple days off for a Thanksgiving break. It was Thanksgiving. And the next couple days my parents were home, so I don't really do these videos when they're home because I'm doing them in the kitchen, on the dining room table. And then also I've been thinking about going to finding a girl, female companion. I'm talking about my first adult girlfriend, my first, I feel like, relationship of equals where two people love each other and start growing something together, not just me following someone around trying to be a puppy dog or enabling their bad behavior. So that made me think, you know what, I'd be interested to see what this current version of myself, what type of response I would get. So I started for a week or two on Tinder, swipe until I ran out of swipes every day. I got like 5 or 6 responses. Out of that, about like 2 or 3, I think it was 1 or 2 eventual conversations. And then this girl, she wanted to go to Slab City. Slab City is out in the desert, about 250, 300 miles away, so about 5 hours away, driving east from here. Drive on the 10 east, and about an hour, hour and a half past Palm Springs, maybe more, 2 hours past Palm Springs, into the Imperial Valley. You get to this place called Slab City. She wanted to go visit it, and I thought, you know what? I'm looking for female energy, but this is what it is I'm not so much I'm looking to get laid, but I'm looking to get that type of insight into my life. If I do believe in this wisdom of the sexes where male energy is different than female energy, we have different biological imperatives that affect us at our very core beings, then males were constantly distracted with sex and procreation. I feel like females have that urge, but in a different way, more towards quality and virtue seeking, because they only have so many eggs, and we can keep just inseminating the world, but there's only so much fertility where your male energy can take. So I've always felt that females in my life offer perspective in the sense of offering value. What the females in my life value are sometimes blind spots to me. Being a guy, I guess that's the wisdom. I'm figuring out how to articulate it. That their senses are a little bit sharper than ours in certain quality finding areas that are necessary for them in order to fulfill their biological imperative, is how you would put it. So sure enough, this girl says, let's go to Slab City, which I'm like, I've been wanting to go to that place since I saw that Into the Wild movie. I read the book and heard about it. And apparently everyone else has too, because it's growing, and it was a lot bigger scene than I thought. There's full-time residents now. There's multiple hostels. We went to this one place, East Jesus, and the guy was pretty cool. He let us stay, even though usually they qualify people better. They don't take same-day arrivals, but they let us stay. Really nice people all around. We jumped in their hot springs. Me and the girl had a pretty decent time. I think I annoyed her with a lot of my talking about my writing, but about halfway through the trip, that night when we were going to spend the night, I was feeling her out. She was comfortable enough to stay the night with me, but I didn't feel any reciprocation as far as like physical stuff. So it was platonic. We cuddled and hung out, but I've, at this point in my life, learned not to push the issue. I'm not going to throw a temper tantrum if I'm not going to get laid. It filters people out of my life too. I don't try too hard. I let people know I'm into them and let people know how it could go, but then it's choose your own adventure. So she chose, and I think I was pretty clear about like, I wasn't cheesy. I wasn't like, let's have sex, but I was cuddling her and I was kind of like physically escalating to the point like, that's like, I didn't even really feel like I could kiss her without it being awkward. I kind of was close enough to her that if anything was going to happen, it was going to happen. But I think she decided, I picked this up from girls, that if they look at you as like that friend type or like that, all right, I'm just not going to have sex with this guy. It's actually, it's better some ways if you they say in Spanish, tle planado, the foot that steps on everything. There's an arch for a reason, and if it was going to happen, it was going to happen. As I get older, I start to see myself a little bit more as a value, that the people I'm with value me, and I know I'm pretty good at what I do, so when I put a little effort and it's not reciprocated, I feel like I'm prideful enough where like, all right, well, this isn't meant to be then. That's good. It's not feeling like you have to make love to the world is exhausting. So ours, I think and that's also I think how you retain a little bit of dignity in the face of that stuff. It's like, you're not rejecting me, I'm not rejecting you. We're just, for whatever reason, chemistry's not here. So we had like, also I was talking a lot about my writing stuff. I think that annoyed her, and that's why this is important to go back to this California ID is I'm learning to have a relationship with this girl, and so I'm learning to actually have conquest or confidence in my sexual interactions. Where after this girl, I had that fuck you love, where it's like once I have this girl's love, who eventually I would consider marrying, but then I go on with the personal development of who I'm trying to be in my political thoughts. But after that, no one else can really make me feel insecure. So after that, I don't feel like when I'm with someone I have to push the issue for sex or anything else like this weekend. It's like if they don't see my value. I felt this way before in life, but it was a suspicion. But once it was justified through good women loving me, good, really beautiful, really sincere, just people that you introduce to anyone and everyone falls in love with them. You know, personally and socially, these are very high quality women, just highly desirable, highly intelligent, very sexual, just and so once you have that type of love, then if you meet someone, I know what I have to offer, so I don't have to try so hard. So I kind of just act like myself, and if myself annoys them or isn't good enough, then that filters them out of my life romantically. So I think that's what happened with this girl. I noticed I was annoying her a little bit, and I would have probably self-edited if I was more desperate to hook up. But a guy, and I think both parties do this, when you first meet someone, you decide whether you would have sex with them or not, just mentally. And in my mind, when I first met her, I was like, she's cute, I would, but under certain conditions, and it would be like I could be my goofy self. So we enjoyed each other's company. It was 3 to 4 hours out there and 3 to 4 hours back. But I think by the end, she was tired of me processing my book and my political ideas, which is, I was telling her, I was saying, I'm doing these videos every day, so I'm a little bit verbally processing. So by the end of it, I try to give her a little bit of break, and we smoked a lot of weed. I get talkative when I'm on weed, but it was a good trip. And that's another thing, is that I come back from the trip, now I deleted Tinder. I felt like I needed to put myself out there, but I'm okay with masturbating and staying in my own hermitage while I work on this project. That interaction with her made me realize that it could be a big distraction too. If I was a little bit more insecure, I would, like back when I was younger, this girl was the beginning of me to stop I still do it to an extent, but I'm trying to get better. Stop editing myself in order to get laid. There's a way to like this girl called me Shaz, the writer. And so me and her, I was seeing her in the best light I could. She was seeing me in the best light. She gave me belief in myself. Well, no one gives you that, but her believing in me as a writer and then later on as a political activist definitely helped me, because that fuck you love. But I started, once I had that, to realize how much I do change for people. And then afterwards in my relationships, try to not change just to get laid or just to have that relationship. I'm still working at that. And that's what's hard if you're so politically idealistic. Society only gives you so many ways to make money and present yourself to the world. So if I don't have a normal job or a normal career path or a normal education, when I meet girls now, I don't have the normal social value, social currency that people do. And so I noticed this beginning with the drug girl in my early 20s. What a girl values, and then if you fall in love with that girl, there's a temptation to change to be in accordance to her values so you can get her. So with the drug girl, all I had to do was become a junkie, and then I would have gotten her and become a leader of her peer group. I met her friends, and every now and then there's this one guy who tried to front to me like I took their needles being a dumbass. from the bathroom, I saw some needles, and I took him, and they're like, "Hey, you steal our rig," and I was like, "You shouldn't have left it out, fucking junkies." I'm like, that's not, you're making, now that pushes them to do more dangerous actions. But back then, I didn't have as much unconditional love or understanding about addiction. Just my heavy-handed Christian upbringing. Now I was projecting what I knew. We only teach what we know until we learn new ideas. So it was that tough love. But like so her friends, I felt like, all right, if I was doing drugs and in this group, I could be like a cool kid like these cool kids. There's just not much substance to them. Um, Even the musicians, I would play a little bit, but I didn't feel like they were the best musicians. But I knew that fallacy, that if I changed myself and my ideals just to get the girl, then now I'm not. What I saw in her was creativity and uniqueness, which now when she's sober, she still has it. And I tell her, like, I've always seen these things in you, and I'm so glad. She just texted me the other day. I told her I went out to Slab City and showing her some pictures. Told her I went out on a date and shit. And let her know I'm dating. I don't want her to think, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter what she thinks. But when she interacts with me, I try to let her know I'm out there, so that way she doesn't think that I'm around waiting for her, so her sobriety is on her own path. Our minds always have these possibilities, like what if we end up together, what if this or that, and so I don't try to hold anything for, like, I'm glad she has a boyfriend, and I don't want her to think I'm out there waiting for her too. It's maybe if we're 50 or 60 or something, but she has. I think I said in a previous video, it would be a little bit of time before I even consider that right now. So I was like, yeah. And also, that's what a normal relationship is between the sexes, is you talk about stuff. If I was hiding my dating life from her, that wouldn't be an honest friendship. Just like I was glad that when she was started dating a couple months ago, she's not just hoping get sober and then me and her eventually. I think I tried once. I was on mushrooms, and I tried to cuddle up to her in bed, and she just pushed me away, like, "What are you doing?" So we're pretty good. I told her I went on a date out there. I didn't tell her it was like a bust physically or romantically, but it was. Well, going into it, I was open-minded. And I think, no, I don't know if me and the girl are going to end up being friends. Because I think once you reject each other like that, like, I think she kind of had an open door. I had an open door, but then both of us backed out of the physical possibility, so we just slept together like platonically. But sometimes that breeds resentment. Did you reject me? Did I reject you? That's kind of the good thing about being a libertine, being just open about sex, like, let's just have sex just to get it off the table, because it makes it not weird. But sometimes being intimate with someone without having sex, then afterwards it's like you can be that little bit of horniness, like, why didn't we just fuck? I've found girls that, like, afterwards, it's almost like you can't win in those types of situations, which is why you be careful interacting with people who don't share your values. That's what, if I didn't hook up with this girl, then I'm probably not in a mind state to hook up, because she had a master's degree in, like, politics, and she works for a union. She worked in DC. She lived in Mexico, very hippie girl. So if it wasn't going to happen with her, probably not in the headspace to happen. If I pushed her away through my analysis and my analytical processing mind right now, that's probably where I should stay. If I bugged her, I'm probably gonna bug most people with my processing. And then if I didn't bug someone, it'd be because they're very understanding of this type of insightful self-introspection journey I'm on, which that would be a very high indicator that we have a match. But more than likely what's going to happen is I'm going to finish this project, lower the self-analysis, be a little bit more social, and when I talk to people, because I'm doing this, I won't have to do it continually. That's the idea. You do it once so you don't continually do it. Once I finish reviewing the life, I'll do it again later on as a part of a project or something, but this is no way to live life. So she met me at a funny time in my life where, yeah, I think by the end of the trip she was done with the Shaz experience. But we had fun. We met some cool people. We found that place to crash. We went wandering through the desert. We found some hot springs. We met a lot of cool people. We were pretty good. We pretended like we were a couple. There wasn't a physical thing, but when we went places, people liked us, and she had a very good energy to her where she was very engaging and calm. She just, some people, she's 32, and some people, as they get older and they were idealistic, now they have this cool, calm, collected cynicism, a smug cynicism, where my idealism of working on a political theory and a writing project to help save the world, they're over that. They're like, we've read the books, we've gone to school, we've lived a little bit of life. There is no saving of the world. There's just, she doesn't watch news, she said, because for her own mental health, which I understand. And society wants you to be enraged, not engaged. So to avoid being enraged, sometimes you have to disengage, but that's not the solution. So that right there was like possible deal breaker. I'm more idealistic and trying to figure out a healthy way to plug into politics, but it's kind of unfair to judge someone like that, because on a normal organic scale, we would get to know each other, and then that wouldn't be a deal breaker, because once you get to know each other enough and there's enough goodwill and faith, I'm a guy who opens up the idealism in a lot of people. And on her end, she would probably bring out a lot of pragmatism in me, her having a normal career path and living in Los Angeles and some cool normal stuff. But I don't think I'm looking for normal right now. I think and I told her, I was like, I needed just some adult company. I've been living with my folks a bunch, but with their Fox News world, and hers was a breath of fresh air in the Slab City. So that, and I thanked her for it. She introduced Slab City to my mind, and now I'm thinking, well, shit, that's exactly where Shaz Barbaric and this question about civilization and philosophies and how to live, that's happening. It's anarchism in practice. There's only so many of these in the world where people escape their local governments and even federal government, and just they're doing their own thing without police force, without anything. So I'm definitely going to go back. And she introduced that to me, and that all happened. So I told some girl that recently. A lot of my best ideas are generated by my worst. Not my worst in the sense of worst, but sometimes just following my dick, following my horniness changes up my life. But you have to know when to follow and when to stop. I was drinking with a wino in front of some projects in Brooklyn. I was walking by. He looked like he needed some company. I was on mushrooms at the time. I stopped. We drank. No, we didn't drink. I gave him a cigarette. We smoked. I gave him some money to go get beers from the bodega. And then I saw he was trying to steal the beers, and the guy out of the bodega came out chasing him, and then they were fighting, and I left. I stopped. I had my cigarette, but then leave before you have to leave is a traveling motto. So with the girls, the same way. I think I reached out for some inspiration. I got it. More than enough. Very inspiring girl. And out of that, now I have Slab City and more people, more connections. But yeah, it wasn't about trying to get laid. So, but you only know that when you've experienced quality, that you don't worry too much about the quantity. So my girl that I meet to have sex with and to actually have a connection, a dialogue, physical dialogue, and spiritual, if you start developing that type of like deep romance, that'll come. But this girl was good practice for human connection. And I think if there's more inspiration and more of like at the very outset, like, okay, this is my one, this girl and this interaction was a good reminder to maybe dial back a little bit and when I first met the Brooklyn girl now she's in my life at this point in my life, 2009. When I first met her, I thought, all right, slowly reveal, not everything at once. You could be a little bit much for people. With this girl, when I met her, I was like, whatever happens, happens. So I didn't really hold back. And I hadn't smoked weed in like a month. So when we got high, I just started rambling. And she was amused until about halfway through the trip. I think by that night and the next day, I started to notice. She was like, And I started talking a lot, or less. It's hard. It's like if I sold the books and if I had the platform, it would make sense. Oh, this is what this guy does. But until I have the platform and have the brand, you just, someone who acts like they're celebrity or acts like they have a readership before they do is irrational or megalomaniac, or I don't know what you would say. You're not tied to reality, because the reality you're acting upon is based in the future. I trust it'll come, but until it comes, I have to be careful not acting like I don't have to do anything. But it will alienate me from people, so that's fine. I'm in my little incubation phase where people around me don't recognize my brand, and people out there haven't heard of it yet. So it's cool. It but yeah. But if I were to just change myself for the people around me, just for their esteem, either girls trying to get laid by or my parents and they're listening to the Fox News, you have to become your own authority in life. And once you become your own authority, then you can get the love you want and the business you. That's something when I rewrote the Tao, it said, success is doing what others may doubt and all will find ridiculous. So others will doubt you and everyone will find you ridiculous if you have a very narrow path. But if you see how to execute it, sincerity and honesty correct towards truth. So if now if I don't execute it, I have to be honest with myself. But I have a timeline, and we'll see if I hit my objective metrics on my timeline. And then maybe if this girl sees me out there and recognizes my brand, and she'll think differently about our interactions, and then maybe she'll go hit me up. I think then we'd be friends. We'd be friends on my terms if she recognized and understood what I was doing. But otherwise, she was she didn't know how to take me. I think on my end, I might have been a little bit soured on her too. But that's what happens if a hookup's just supposed to be. That's like don't sulk in a dance bar, don't dance in a dive bar, don't turn a romance into a hookup, don't turn a hookup into a romance. Maybe it was from the outset should have been a hookup if we were going to do a hookup. But I wasn't even sure if I was down to do a hookup with her because I wasn't really sure. I bought the condoms and I had them on me, but I never really broached the subject. She brought her toothbrush, which might as well be a condom for a girl. If a guy brings a condom on a date thinking he's going to get laid, if a girl brings a toothbrush, she's thinking she's going to maybe spend the night. So we both went in it thinking we were going to maybe do something, but I think we both were a little bit spoiled and snobby in our love life, where she wanted me to approach her in her way. I wanted her to approach me in my way. We ended up just like platonic cuddling. Yeah, we're both stubborn. That's funny. So yeah, in that sense, maybe there was more of a match than I would realize. But that's what happened with one of the girlfriends I had, is we both didn't really hang out with each other until a week or two had passed our first date because we were both kind of, I think, too stubborn to hit the other person up. But when we did hang out again, we were just, like, that's what I told this girl. I said, when we were hanging out, it's like a relationship. We just got into boyfriend-girlfriend mode pretty quickly, just very, I just walked around, looked at art, talked to people, and she did her own thing, and then we met back up. So she had a very good energy like that, like a good partner, good exploring partner. I felt like we were a good adventuring partner. But that's how life is sometimes. When you meet a strong personality or a strong ego, you have to meet on certain terms. So I'm not going to be the hipster dude that maybe she's waiting for, the dude just to like, there's certain ways I'm going to approach a girl, certain ways I'm not. And then the same way with her, when I was trying to get her to sing, I picked up a guitar and started playing for her and stuff. And she's like, I'm not going to be your artistic, buddy that you're bringing art out of. So we both have our basically bullshit detectors. So I think she hit me with some like, don't try to come at me like just a dude with a guitar, bro, expecting to get my pants. And I was hitting her, I think, with don't come at me like I'm just going to agree with all your outlooks on life just to try to get in your pants. I'm just going to, yeah, she told me I reminded her a lot of herself when she was more analytic, and now she's learned to just chill out. So yeah, I think she saw me as a previous incarnation of herself when she was too analytic. But that's me trying to get a publishing company off the ground. So I can't quite take her interpretation as objective reality. That's something to keep in mind, but pretty sure that what I'm doing here is practical in the sense of this is a form of processing for my writing and my brand. But I get what she's saying. But then I notice some fallacies and possible projections. But it's a little bit rude to act too, and I told her that when we were driving, I'll try to chill out a little bit. It's a little rude to act too familiar with someone and probe too much when you're just getting to know them. Unless they're on that radical insight, self-exploration, discovery, and in that case, they're going to always accept any insight you have into the personality to help him be better, as long as it's not malicious. So I try not to come off as malicious, but just curious, talkative, probing. But people don't want to analyze life. I definitely don't like analyzing sex and stuff, so maybe she thought, oh shit, having sex with this guy is going to be super analytic. But there's times in which I like to turn my brain off. But in the car ride, definitely, I think we had a good conversation. But then also it could be a little bit exhausting if I'm always living like this, very introspective, and if you're not, then after a while you just get tired of it. But if you're not doing this, what are you doing? On the social media, or worrying about where you're going to eat, or your friend group, or your job? I don't have those things to worry about. So I've cleared up the bandwidth to be this introspective, to speed up my personal growth. But we will see. Driver's license. So here I have this girl. I haven't even spoken about this. I just wanted to catch up on my personal life. I think I got that out of my system. And I was wondering what would happen if I brought some female energy in my life. And sure enough, now I have another inspiration. Her politics and her life view turned me on to this whole civilization on the edge of nowhere. And my artistic, anarchist, free-flowing state that I put out there attracted the female counterpart. And then she led me to an awesome civilization, which there is where I'm going to find my people, I think. More so than her. She's the tourist who goes there to visit. Is she the person who would live there? We'd both talked about whether we would live there or not. But I'm actually kind of leaning towards there might be some slab city in my future. So I everything that I've been doing up to this point points in that direction. So it's pretty cool. And like most cool things in my life, I have a beautiful, awesome woman to thank for it. So thank you, anonymous, beautiful, awesome woman. Hopefully I didn't bug you too much. I'm sorry for the cockpit, but that's just, if I get a funny idea in my head, I usually follow through with it. All right, California driver's license. 870 Pine Tree Road. So I was looking at this, I was thinking, when did I get this? I got this July 2009. So the suspension is up on my DUI. I think I took the classes in order for that to happen. But then I still need to pay the fine. I didn't pay the fine until 2012 or 13 when I was making real estate money, because the fine's like $1,500. But I did the classes in order to release the suspension, because the reason why I have that is that when I was with this girl in Brooklyn, I was saying, doing like real exploration of the female body at this time. What is sex? Oh my gosh, I'm actually maybe good at this. This girl is, every guy is good at sex if you get a good partner, because she'll show you what to do, what not to do. So this girl's like, oh, she called me like a cocksmith, and like, oh, so my confidence is going up. Like, I could get a girl off. Wow. And what else? Yeah, that whole, like, there's a lot of masculine pride that goes into learning how to give a girl an orgasm, especially a very vocal girl who she's a dominatrix, and then she stopped being one because the scene was a little bit too negative for her. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin to do that. You see a lot of shit. So not to judge sex work at all or the people who do it, but people are complex, and it's when you deal with sexuality in such a narrow field like that, where the kinks can get intense, then you have to be very good at just. So she is good at not judging people, and it has to be very vulgar for her to take offense at something. Otherwise, the cat calls and everything else, she loves it. She loves free flowing sexual energy. But it was a little too negative for her, the client she was getting. So she stopped that, but I didn't tell her to stop it. So we have a loving, positive home garden that we're growing. But then in my mind, I went to California, and I felt like she needs to come to California. She needs to, and I was thinking about locking this down, and actually I thought this is a life partner. I wanted to go to Santa Cruz. I do this a lot in life, go from this place back to this place to judge this wisdom by this wisdom. So I'd been in New York, I found this girl, now let's go back to California. So that's, I think, why I got this driver's license when I was in California. And then I got a job with State Farm. This guy was opening up a State Farm agency right by the beach. And so that was a really cool life, a little bit in Santa Cruz. I was working for this kid who was about my age, 26, 27. He had just gone out of college, applied to State Farm. State Farm said, Usually we make you build up your book of business from the ground, but this guy just died and he has a $200,000 a year income book. So we're going to let you just take his book over. So now you don't even have to. State Farm, they come in with all the metrics, and that's why when you apply, they said, our numbers, our research, this is all to my boss, but I know about it because the boss is about my age, so we were broing out, and he was just letting me know how everything goes. My friend over there, she was at the interview when he interviewed me at a coffee shop, and when he left, she was like, oh, he's going to hire you. I was like, why do you think? And she said, oh, you're cooler than him. So I think my casual, just being nice and chill, a lot of clients too in New York, I was like, why'd you pick me over another broker? They're like, you seem normal. So people like my approach usually. I try to stay down to earth. Just despite outward appearances at megalomania. So Chris Buich, he's still there. State Farm, really awesome office, right there by the lighthouse. O'Neill Surfboards, O'Neill Surf Culture Company. Was it John O'Neill? He invented the wetsuit, basically, a way for surfers to get into the cold waters and surf. Just, what is it, a fabric that holds air, that creates an insulation barrier between your skin and the water, and then it heats up as you're moving, or you pee in the wetsuit, is what my friends would tell me. Rip Curl, all those wetsuits. But I think O'Neill invented that, and he had a little office in the same little complex right there on the beach next to the lighthouse. There was a crow's nest, top little pop out, and that's where supposedly O'Neill would like go with his floozies, and he was a rich man in Santa Cruz, and he had a lot of money, and so he would have his hookups up there in the crow's house, they told me. But he's long gone. But yeah, Chris Buich, he has his office still there in the Santa Cruz harbor, basically, where all the boats are. So it was really nice. My office is overlooking the ocean. Every Wednesday you see the boats go out of the Santa Cruz harbor. So a lot of times in my life, not just recently, when I was doing real estate in New York, I've had nice lives. And this point, I was living in Seabright, so I was a 10-minute walk into the harbor to my job. And the job was to sell insurance, my family trade. I had this cool boss who was my age. And he had a cool setup where, oh yeah, State Farm, these large companies, they'll say, all right, our analytics show that the Santa Cruz area, based on its growth, can support another State Farm agent. There's enough market share. So then if you apply to State Farm, if you want your own agency, they'll say, all right, we're going to put you in a location where we think you can grow. We don't want to, they're not in the business of opening up State Farms that implode and ruin their brand. You're in charge of running it just like any franchise, but they do the national branding, and they care about you making money. If you're not making money, they reserve the right to shut you down, or if you're representing their brand wrong. So State Farm said, yeah, Santa Cruz can have another agent, but not just that. Now someone died, and he didn't have a will, or something happened where his book went back to State Farm, which is very rare because this guy's life legacy is this book of business. He grew to $200,000 a year in income. So I don't know how much the book is, like $1 million or $2 million or something, because the income, his percentage that he's getting a year just from all the commissions is like $200,000. So they told Chris is probably fully invested now, but they told him, you can have this. So this is very rare and very awesome that we'll let you take over this existing book. So now there's less pressure on you. Now you still have to grow. We still think that there's this market share for you to get, but now we're also going to just give you a nice big chunk of the pie. So as long as you do what you're supposed to and don't be a dumbass, you have a $250,000 book no matter what, plus whatever else you earn from growing in Santa Cruz. But I think it was like vesting, like if he does right the first year, second year, fifth year, they're just not going to give it to him right away. They don't even know if he's going to be good in insurance. So Chris realized this was an awesome opportunity. He graduated business degree from California State University, Monterey, maybe, or somewhere around there, local school. He was a nice guy, a good family. I met his parents, and they came out supporting him. The mom's the one who got him the lease, I think. The mom or the dad found him that spot right in the harbor. So he set up good infrastructure and support. I don't think I made him much money. I babysat his office for 3 or 4 months until I quit. But I was nice while I was there, and we broed out some. He didn't fire me when he should have. I went for the training in Bakersville, in the middle of in the valley in Santa Cruz, in the breadbasket, when you go off the 5 and you're going through from between LA And San Francisco, you go down the 5 and you go down I forgot what it's called, but it's the Central Valley where all the farmers are. And Bakersfield is, that's where they do the training, probably because it's cheap for State Farm. So I went out there, and this is a funny story. I partied a little bit this weekend when I went with this girl. It was a good, like, we didn't hook up, but it was a normal thing, like a lot of weed, and I hadn't smoked weed in a while. At one point we had 5 joints going between 6 people, and so you would smoke, pass, and then we did dabs after that. It was stupid. A lot of drinking too. So it was just every now and then it's good to let loose. It was Thanksgiving. This project it balances you out. If I'm only this, I was noticing I was getting a little curmudgeonly, and even now with like sex and stuff, I don't feel as hard up knowing that I had an opportunity, whether it worked or not. I'm pretty sure I could have if I was really hard up on it, but it was pride or ego or whatever that stopped me. But I had an example of a woman who was into me, which is nice to remind you that you're a sexy beast. But so this Chris should have fired me because I went down there for that training, and we're at this hotel where they're offering you free breakfast and free dinner, but they're also offering you a keg. So I was still young and still learning my relationship with alcohol. So I was like, oh, free beer. So at night I would do 5 or 6 glasses easy from the keg. And then there was Indian gambling around there too. So someone finds me, and this is a friend of Chris, because Chris just became a State Farm agent. So he has other friends in his training he went to become an agent and manage an office. So I meet other people who know Chris who are training under, there's this guy who owns an agency, I think. So he's there to say hi to his agents who are in training around there. But he made friends with Chris through training something. But somehow he's like, you're Chris's boy. Oh man, we're going gambling tonight. And I bring my girl down there. So my girl, we had moved to California. I was like, we need to do the California thing. I need to, in my mind, without telling her, I was like, I need to let you meet my friends and my folks and see this side of my life before I decide to marry you or lock this down. Before you get to that point in relationships where you're like, this is the one, but now let's start qualifying. And that's when like the family meetings or the other stuff, the friend meetings. And it's not like you're telling them, but pretty much you're qualifying. Like you can tell when people are doing those qualifying steps. Sometimes the dog or the pet is a qualifying step. So she's when she came out to California, she was like, where are all the lights? She was freaked out at the fact that like nature was like dark. Like you take her to the redwoods, to the forest, and it's dark. She had never been camping before. She'd never been riding a bike. I had to teach her how to ride a bike. So this girl was as city Brooklyn as you can get, which is healthy. That's why I said after we broke up, she went to Portland. She got even crunchier than me. Now she's like, when I talk to her, she's like my super, like this girl I went on the trip with, she's into astrology. It's like, she's just super crunchy. But like when I met this girl, and that's what she tells me, our relationship really opened up that side of her. But then she surpassed me in her hippiedom. But back then, nature scared her and she didn't know how to ride a bike or get stoned. So, but she's being a good housewife and she's cooking for me. And I don't think she got a job in Santa Cruz, but later on she got a job in Berkeley. But at this point I'm working and she's just hanging out. We're playing poker with my friends. She's learning poker and kicking my friends' butts. A lot of we had a record player. We would play the Gambler. We had whatever that guy's name. We had that record. We had a bunch of old records. So she goes with me to Bakersfield, and I was just a memory. Chris should have fired me because I went out gambling with those guys, and it was so like I was just drinking. I already had my 5 or 6 beers before we headed out at the open bar at the hotel. So by the time we got out, whiskey, blah blah blah. I got kicked out of a hotel or a Indian gambling casino because I was winning at blackjack, but I was being loud about it and shit talking the dealer and everyone at the table. So I'm a happy drunk, especially if I'm well laid. But I could get rowdy. That military rowdiness gets out where like just you want to like fucking or fighting or something, but there's energy coming out of your fingertips. So I was like, I had one in Reno. When I did that trip to Tahoe. Did I say that trip? Once this company I was working for in the East Bay paid for a trip to Tahoe, and then I won $700 in Tahoe. I don't know if I said this story. And so me and my friends I brought up, we went to Reno, and I said, well, none of this money's coming back home, so this is paying for a trip. So I would just give them 100, 200, and we kept winning enough to keep the weekend going. But by the end of the weekend, we ran out of money. I think our last day hungover, we just went in and you don't want to really gamble hungover and hating life. We just spent our last, I think we had 350 by then, and we just spent it all just so we could fucking leave. But until then, one of them was a really smart kid from Berkeley, and he just told us the basic rules of blackjack. He said blackjack has the best odds. Just hit when you have this, hold when you have this. Told us some basic rules, and we were just following that, and we were keeping our money pile pretty consistent. We weren't really losing. We'd go on runs, we'd spend the runs, we'd come back. When we needed money, we'd say time for blackjack, and we'd go back and we'd earn it back. So until the very end, we had a pretty good streak going. So I don't quite remember all those rules, but back then I think I still did. This is only within a couple years. So even shit-faced drunk, I'm in Bakersfield Indian Casino, shit-faced drunk, but following these simple little rules and keeping my money stack decent. So I'm not losing enough fast enough for them to kick me out. So at one point they just fucking tell me to leave. And my friends take me from there to, I forgot where. I was the funny, really drunk guy. And then eventually they bring me back to my hotel room and just, I don't remember most of this, but I remember the girl who I brought out there from New York. And we had been through shit in New York, like her dominatrix scene. And we had a little bit of disagreements where I was out of town once and she hooked up with someone. But before I left to leave out of town, I said, act like you're single. I know you have guys still into you. This was a couple months after we started dating. I said, I don't want you to have any regrets. So when I'm gone, and if you have like an opportunity, we're both young, who cares? And sure enough, when I was gone, she hooked up with someone. So we were like, whatever. And then like, I thought I had money in the bank. So once when I was visiting California, I hooked up with an old fling. And then she got really upset, a lot more than I did. And I thought this was just like, well, if we're out of town. But then I realized the love isn't logical. It isn't about a tit for tat because now our balances are equal. If you do something that hurts your partner, you're wrong, regardless of if you feel that you were justified. Her love is thinking about the other person's feelings. And even if I can justify it rationally, well, this is just what you did. Come on, we like exact same thing, but the other way. But the love isn't an accounting. Love is me not making her cry. If I don't care about her feelings, then why am I with her? So when she was really upset about that, I was like, thought it was right, but this isn't worth it. And that's what it is. It's not worth it to be right. If you really love someone, you want them to be happy. You can sometimes you run into things in a relationship where you can either be right or the person could be happy. If you choose to be right more consistently than choosing the other person's happiness, that's not a relationship. That's a logical algorithm. Relationship is valuing the emotions of the partner. But that was in learning. So when we did that little back and forth thing, I learned that, just because I'm justified doesn't mean that I didn't think she would. When she cried a lot, I felt like shit. I did the wrong thing. It wasn't worth it for me, for that little hookup. That girl meant nothing to me. Just like when she hooked up with the guy, when she told me, she cried and cried. So she cried both times. So that shows you where her heart is. I never doubted her, and I never doubted her faithfulness after that. And that was really important because after the drug girl who would manipulate me emotionally, and then I was always trying to figure out reality with her and trying to figure out where she's lying to me, to get this girl where like she feels even worse than I do when she cheated on me. And then and I don't even like these terms, cheated on, but when she fell for temptation, because that's all it is. It's people being weak, even if you love someone, but you fall for temptation. We're all just animals trying to itch that scratch. I want my sexual energy to go into my relationship, but if I'm tempted enough, I think anyone could fall for temptation if tempted enough. What you do if you're in a relationship, you try to avoid those temptations. You don't make your life harder than it has to be. So don't put yourself in situations like that. And then also feed your healthy relationship. So if you are tempted, like Paul Newman said once, why would I go out for a hamburger when I have a sirloin steak waiting at home? Your partner should be the one who you most enjoy having sex with, or else work on your sex life or find a new partner. But that should be where your sexual needs are being met. Now, if it's not, then you figured out something else. Now you have a partner for life, but you probably need something else for sex, and now that's just, however you figure that out, that's great, but I think the least complicated one is where your life partner is also your sexual partner. That's the best rational case for monogamy I've seen, just as a logical person. So anyway, so these guys drop me off at the hotel, drunk as shit. She opens the door. She's like, oh fuck. So she thinks it's hilarious, and she tells me in the morning, she's like, "You're trying to invite him in." I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah." You're like, "Oh, come on, come on." And I guess I want to keep the party going, like my bros, my friends, and I'm like the king drunk. And when you like when you're out with like someone, I didn't puke over everyone. Luckily, in the army, I would have those times where every now and then I get too drunk, and then I'm the guy who yacked in someone's Jeep or something, and I'm there washing it the next day and apologizing so bad, get him a bottle and say I'm so sorry. But with with her, I yacked in the bathroom right as soon as I got home. No, this is why I should have gotten fired. So I like they dropped me off in her arms like here, just take him, and I'm like, I'm so happy. Come on, guys. They're like, no, no, no. And then she was like, what the fuck are you inviting them into our hotel room? And so she puts me to bed. But the next day I could barely walk, and I have class. This is a week long class. So this is like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So I could barely walk. I'm like, fuck. So I go and I puke and I drive, and I know driving to the class I'm still drunk. Like I shouldn't even be driving because I got the DUI just a year ago. So it's like, fuck, this is stupid. This is stupid. And it's only right down the street, but just even right down the street from the hotel to the State Farm training. So I'm sitting there in the class and like reeking of alcohol. My eyes are all bloodshot. So I go to the bathroom. I pass out in the bathroom. Someone comes in because we're in a State Farm corporate headquarters. So someone comes into the bathroom and I'm skipping the class. So now it's like 2-3 hours I should be in class. And I'm slumped over in the bathroom and someone knocks on the stall. Are you okay? Because this isn't just education purposes. There's like adjusters there. This is corporate State Farm. And I'm passed out, shit-faced drunk in the corner of the bathroom stall. So I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm cool. So I'm like, I have to go home. I'm going to be in even more trouble. Right now, the safest place for me is the hotel room. Because right now, walking around the State Farm corporate headquarters drunk isn't a good look. So I tell the teacher, I've just tried to spend some time in the bathroom. Blah, blah, blah. I'm too sick. I have to go. And so I go back, and Chris calls me that afternoon, and he's so pissed. He's like, tell me right now why I shouldn't fire you. Because I want to fire you. And my parents tell me I should fire you. And everyone's telling me I should fire you. So tell me just one reason why I shouldn't. And I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. And I just told him I went out with some boys, and I named some names that he knows. I was like, your friend so-and-so, I tried to be cool, and I thought, well, these are your friends, and they won't lead me astray, but I think we got a little bit too rowdy. And the guy I was drinking with was like the boss of a State Farm agency. So he wasn't, like I was going shot for shot and being rowdy with someone on Chris's level who didn't have to go into those classes the next day. He was just there to check on his boys. There's like 3 or 4 agents who were in the class. So the guy was probably just as drunk as me, but he's the owner of a State Farm agency, and then his friends have to, or his employees have to go to work the next day. So he checked out my story, and he told me that the only reason why you can come back and still work for me is because I talked to that guy, and he's my boy, and he's hung out with him too, so he knows how he could be. So he was like, all right, you hung out with so and so. I forgot the guy's name. He's like, I get it. You're like, it's not you. And I'm like, no, man, I'm not. I was in the military, and I'm used to like, I could get rowdy, but it's not usually my MO. But if I'm pushed a little bit, it's in me. I got that Irish drinking, wandering adventure spirit. Once you just break that seal, we'll get rowdy with the best of them. Maybe it's also Mexican with the tequila, but usually I keep that little demon in check. And so he was like, all right, I will give you one chance because of the circumstances and the people you were with. And I was like, thank you so much. But it was very stupid and irresponsible of me. It was hilarious. And when I came back, we laughed about it, me and Chris. But yeah, sometimes you do a mistake big enough for it to become legendary, and then people are like, that is hilarious. Never do it again, or that's your ass. And that's pretty much what it was. Me and Chris, like, that's hilarious, but you fuck up like that again, that's your ass. And so I worked with him for a couple months, made him a little money. Pretty much, I wasn't a bad hire. 1 out of every 3 or 4 hires work out. So probably one person hopefully is still there from the time he was hired me, but he cycled through a couple agents while I was there. And then me and the girl from New York were like, let's go to Berkeley, because my friends were living in San Francisco at the time. I had some friends in Santa Cruz, but some in San Francisco. And I loved Berkeley, so I was doing that whole retracing my steps. I'd lived in Berkeley before, in the college now. And this girl too, I feel like Santa Cruz was a little too small. I said, you'll love Berkeley. It's the East Band she did. The Berkeley Bowl, it's like Whole Foods, but on a local level. I would spend $20-$30 on tea, like a third of our grocery budget on loose leaf teas, because you have like 20 or 30 loose leaf teas. So I would pick a little bit of this, a little bit of that, make my proprietary tea blends. in Berkeley was where we were getting our free weed. So we started smoking more consistently, and she started actually being more chill when she smokes and being able to talk to me and let our minds wander together as a couple. So it's not just us smoking and becoming insular where we ignore each other and we're both like, well, no, I'd outgrown that, but I feel like she would retreat into herself. But then she started being able to be more share that side of herself with me, that weird side. I'm going to be judged if I speak my stony thoughts. No, you won't. It's not. That's why it's good for your confidence. It teaches you how to not be if you could be freely yourself when you're stony, quirky, weird, then, and that's what I was too much of with this girl that I just met, my freely stony, quirky self. And some of the shit I say when I'm stoned is really silly, weird shit. But it's life. It's in my head. Better out than in, right? If it's too weird, then don't keep that thought. I'm glad I acknowledged it. But so California driver's license reminds me of when I went there. And then also this leads us to the next one, DM Insurance. So Chris, and I'm glad I said that Chris story. Chris Buich, State Farm, Santa Cruz, look him up. Because I thought, he's my age, he has a State Farm agency, why am I working for him? Just the same when I was doing real estate. Why am I going to work for these dumbasses? I'm starting to realize that either a job gets you or you get it. Either I'm overqualified or underqualified. Because it's very unlikely that I found a job that is my exact skill set and life experience. So either I talk my way into a job that I'm going to grow with because I'm underqualified, which is great. That's what you want. Then grow from the industry. And that's what I had no idea how to do real estate when I first got real estate license. But by the end, I thought, this isn't worth my time. These people aren't worth my time. A little bit better skill set than what I'm selling myself for. That's how I felt at the very end when I started reading my books and going back to my writing at the end of 2017. It was like 2-3 clients in a row. I had 2 bad reviews all of a sudden for like 5-6 years, not getting any bad reviews. And then I got a couple quick ones. I was starting to not value the clients anymore because I started to feel like it wasn't worth my time. But so with Chris, I was like starting to realize I'm helping. This is a second agency that I've helped people set up. I had another guy at Farmers Insurance. I helped him set up his agency. And the third agency I've worked for in Santa Cruz, I saw my parents set up there. So I probably have the skill set to set up an insurance agency. I'm watching how effortlessly Chris did it. Basically Pimp by Numbers, idiot guide to like setting up an agency where they're giving him a book and they're giving him a brand. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do my own thing. I've seen 2 of them set up already. So we moved to Berkeley. I found an apartment to rent for a month. And the girl said, you can actually probably take over the lease. I'll introduce you to the landlord. And we did. We took over her lease. That was Regina Spektor's cousin. She said, yeah, you might know my cousin. So her name was something Spektor. But she said they grew up in New York, and she told us a little bit about how Regina came up. Regina Spektor is a pop artist, really amazing. I ran into her in Santa Cruz. Some friends of mine were listening to her in a Starbucks, this barista. And then she turned us all onto it. And then that druggy girl in Southern California that we're still friends with, I turned her on to Regina Spektor. So just music, art heals you. That type of music sounded so fresh at the time. And then good music becomes a part of the canon where now it doesn't sound fresh because we've incorporated that style and sound. But if you haven't heard it yet, it'll sound really fresh to you. Really beautiful way that she sings and plays piano and expresses herself. So her cousin was really cool, and we're talking about politics. And I'm starting to get that itch again. Starting to get that itch about politics. And she introduces me to I Am Another Thou. So I start talking about how I think it's objectification. And I started to see this in the eugenics at the turn of the 20th century when I was in college and when I was in that early 20th century literature class, trying to talk to that teacher about what was the social justification for Hitler. I'm starting to walk away from the strong man of history argument that there's just one good or one bad person in history. It's usually a complex network of incentive structures in place to allow these people to rise, and then also cultural structures in place. And then now when I'm reading about how people develop their morality, a conventional morality is based off of civic and social norms. So this is, unless you're reaching that universal morality, which takes effort, I think. I think we inherently have the tools as human beings, and we're born with this universal morality. But it takes effort to rise above fear of punishment, hope of reward, social and civic morality, get to that universal spiritual standard of this is right just because inherently. And it also takes life experience to learn what that standard is, to see examples of good and bad, of cooperation and selfishness. And then when I look back at my life doing this, I start to realize where I was developing my universal morality standards. But meeting this girl was huge. So we went to rent this place in Berkeley to show my girl, look at Santa Cruz was cool, but I think I could have what that kid had, but in Berkeley. It was small fish, small pond syndrome. There was a reason why I left Santa Cruz way back when. So it's like, let me try Berkeley. We have the Oakland Port, commercial trucking. I opened up commercial trucking accounts for my parents in Southern California. If I look at my skill set on how to make money, I know how to get the motor carrier permit numbers offline. So all I was doing in Berkeley was building my database of leads, motor carrier permit numbers that are located here in the East Bay, Oakland, Berkeley area. And I was just going to run through and call. It worked in my parents' office. Why wouldn't it work under my own insurance agency? But I can't talk too much about that. Actually, I'm just going to segue into the next video. It's already 55 minutes, about to cut me off. But I'll talk about that in a second, the motor carrier permits. So just to end with, that girl let me, I said, I think it's objectification is the root heart of this. Looking at that other person as an object or someone that I can take resources from or commit violence against. The same as looking at a tree as lumber, looking at a pig as bacon. There's uses that we need out of this world that surrounds us, but when we only look at it in terms of its use and not its inherent dignity, especially human beings. And so speaking like that, she said, you need to read this book. And they're strongly Jewish, Russian immigrant family, I think. They came out of the Eastern Europe, Jewish wave when they were being persecuted out there. Or maybe just for poverty. I don't know what their story is. But I know they grew up humble in the Bronx. That's like a common Eastern European immigrant narrative. Just like my common Mexican narrative. My mom came from Mexico, looking for a better life. So Martin Buber is the guy who wrote that book. He wrote it right after World War II, I think, or right around there. A lot of people during times of trauma in the world feel necessary to articulate their beliefs, just like I felt I did after 2 attacks in New York sort of shook me up. Like, the world is not cool, and the world can't wait for my timeline of do real estate and have a comfortable life until I'm in my 50s and then gather these scraps together and try to do like a Paulo Coelho, like let me try to be an older hippie bringing the wisdom to the masses after I have a comfortable life. I think that's what his story is. He was a music promoter and had his fun, and then when he got older, he's like, all right, let me be idealistic again. I thought, no, I've seen how that works out. Don't respect those people. Let me be idealistic now while I have the energy to actually say some fucking wild, outlandish things. So, so Martin, I find in other times of trauma, these people who stood up and said, this is a time for me to synthesize some wisdom that the world needs. That's what I feel in his book. And the way I described it is like intellectual heavy lifting. It's a very good book. I read it a couple times, and I got the audio book. And I think it's every time you read something like that, you get something more from it. Until I no longer get anything from it, I'll probably keep reading that book or books like it. So, that was a good one. We rolled a cigarette on the porch. That was probably the beginning of the end of my relationship, actually, because I had a connection with that girl. We were smoking a cigarette, and it was so intellectual and so not what I had with the girl inside the apartment, which is a girl that's supposedly I'm qualifying to marry, who just moved from New York to Santa Cruz, taught her how to ride a bike in Santa Cruz, teaching her how to just chill the fuck out, take that energy, New York energy off of you. And now I'm in Berkeley. I'm on the back steps of this apartment with this girl who's Regina Spektor's cousin, and we're smoking. And she's talking to me about spirituality and this higher sense of morality and this intellectual level that I know just knowing this girl for like a year now or 6 months. Yeah, it was close to a year then when we moved to Berkeley. I knew I didn't have that connection with that girl in that apartment. And that probably spelled the beginning of the end. Like, all right, if I can't share my intellectual side with my partner, and that's you only learn that that's a deal breaker by running right up to it. And then I ignored it, and then we stayed together for I think another year or so off and on, and then we broke up, got back together. But if I had to see why that relationship ended, that was the limit, that intellectual barrier. So complicated people like myself, us weird complicated people, it's hard for us to find someone that we don't feel we're settling with and no judgment on the partner, and that's a very good reflection on the girl I was just with this weekend. But we just we are complicated. It's okay. Let's try not to break too many eggs while we make our omelet for two. All right, on to the next one.